In his time, Vin Diesel's dipped his no doubt muscular toe into the spy hero genre in XXX. It was one of a whole generation of movies that simply wouldn't exist if the producers of the Bond series hadn't invented it, and created a heady cocktail of adrenaline, humour and glamour that's left global audiences very much shaken and stirred since the early 60s. Initially in partnership with Harry Saltzman, the late Albert R. Cubby Broccoli was a driving force behind the Bond films for over 30 years. And today his family members keep up the good work at the helm of the company he co-founded and came to run, Eon Productions. As this month sees celebrations underway to mark the centenary of Cubby's birth, I headed to Eon HQ to find out a little more about the man behind the exploits of Commander Bond.
Carte. 9 à la banque.
I need another 1,000.
I admire your courage, Miss...
Trench. Sylvia Trench. I admire your luck, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Michael Barber, thank you so much for inviting us here to talk about Cubby. I think you could make a case for him being perhaps the most famous film producer in the history of movies. I mean, I think everyone has heard his name if they're a fan of films. Barber, of course, he was so much more to you. What was he like as a man?
He was incredibly generous. You know, he was someone who, he had a very, very warm personality. You know, when he came into a room, he really filled the room. He was funny, he was very funny. I think, you know, I enjoyed his company so much. You know, we used to, when we were working together, he would pick me up in the morning at, 6 o'clock, and we'd spend the whole day together. And then we'd be finished working, and he'd say, so, do you want to have dinner? I'd go home at midnight, and I never could get enough of him. He was obviously so associated with the Bond movies, you can't think of them without him, but he began them with Harry Saltzman, of course. I get the feeling they were quite different men.
Yeah, Harry and Cubby were quite different. Cubby came over originally with Irving Allen and made 18 films here in Britain, and then he teamed up with Saltzman. Saltzman was a very flamboyant type of salesman and full of ideas and energy. Made several other films while they were making the Bond films, but Cubby was steady, sort of focused on the Bond films, made that what he wanted to do, and except for Chitty, just the last 25 years of his life just focused on them.
From the mid-1970s, Albert R. Broccoli took on sole producing responsibility on the Bond movies, greenlighting the construction of the enormous 007 soundstage for The Spy Who Loved Me, and taking Bond to Brazil and into space with Moonraker. And these movies weren't cheap.
It's frightening, but these things cost more these days. When you come to this type of a location, you can imagine, with all of our eating technicians from Great Britain and France and Brazil, it's a costly operation.
He took on solo producing the Bond movies, I believe, with The Spy Who Loved Me. And that's at an age when most people would be considering retirement. So he must have been quite a driven person.
He had a lot of energy. He was very driven. He had an incredible work ethic. He grew up on a farm. So he wasn't afraid of hard work. And he just loved being on the set. And it was a real family atmosphere. And the people on the crew were his friends. So he didn't he didn't see the work as arduous. He found it really, stimulating and exciting. When I look at footage of old set reports, you always see Cubby there. He's always there. Yeah. He seemed to be very hands-on, certainly. Would it be fair to say that he was reluctant to let anyone else have control? Was he someone who didn't want other people to shape it as much as he could?
No, I don't think that would be accurate. I think he was someone who liked to delegate to the people he trusted, and that's why so many people came back, like Ken Adam and the directors. So many of them came back film after film. He was very happy to listen, take it all on board. If a decision had to be made, there was no question he'd be prepared to make the decision. But he was very happy to just be there in case anything came up.
Whose chair is this?
Oh, Sato's chair.
Sato's.
Do you want it for your office?
It's maybe Broccoli's chair before.
Might even be able to use the desk. Yeah?
No, the desk is a bit too posh for me.
But Michael mentioned some of the qualities that Cubby obviously had as a producer. He made a decision when it needed to, but he could certainly delegate as well. But what did you learn from him as a producer? What do you think his strengths were, and what do you think how's that shaped your approach to producing?
I think the passion was infectious. You know, he had such passion. He loved to be on the set. He'd love to get there early in the morning. I mean, he used to say to me, it was like being the producer of a movie was like bringing the circus to town. You know, the other part was that he loved when a film was finished, he would go to the cinema and he'd stand in the back of the audience and he'd just listen, you know, and he loved to hear people enjoying themselves and he loved being able to entertain people.
I so wish I had been lucky enough to meet him, but whenever I speak to you guys, I know that I'm kind of, in a way, in his presence as well, because obviously his influence is still felt by you every day.
Thanks, John.
Thanks a lot, John.
Put your hands back in your pockets. Keep them there.
The Albert R. Broccoli season begins this week at the BFI South Bank, while From Russia With Love will be on release nationwide from the 24th of April.